We are back again, my friend. Much love. This is Jerome Shaw, host of the Open Palm Podcast, motivator, meditator, coming at you to take another look inside another book. This beautiful book here with more wisdom of the ages from one of today's modern sages. This is Jerome Shaw, and we are back with the Pranic pages. Now, right before we say this and get into this word, I just wanted to tell you, it is such a blessing, such a blessing just to be expressing not only this information, but to raise the vibration in the nation, And just to have this conversation, I'm blessed. I feel privileged, I feel honored, and just thank you for listening. Just wanted to let you know, it is just a pleasure to be able to do this. And I find so much treasure within the pleasure that is insurmountable. You can't even measure, how much it means just to be able to do this for a living, to be in service, to be on purpose, and to be giving, for we understand that we are always receiving, So for you who are watching, keep on believing and changing the ways that you're perceiving. So much love to you. This is a book by Mira Omerzel, and I first heard about this book from Elitam Elamine, one of my mentors. The book is called Life Without Food and the Timelessness of Spiritual Messages of the North American Indians. So once again, it is Life Without Food. So we already did Ray Mayor's A Year Without Food. This book is talking about life without food. And how can it be done? We have only just begun. So this section, in this direction, we're going to start with life without usual food, the process and challenges of Breatharianism. On Breatharianism and the acceptance of spiritual guidance. The creation of fertile land. Giants called Ajay recounted that the land was barren at first. Nothing but rocks. It bore no fruit, but there was no need for food anyway. Among the people lived God himself, with spirit and body, and he fed people with manna from heaven. Yet people were unhappy, for they feared God's greatness and splendor. Constantly trembling, they could neither enjoy their food and drink, nor make merry. God took pity on them. He separated from his body and moved to heaven. However, his body decomposed and turned into fertile soil. In God's soil, people cultivated their own food and no longer needed the manna from heaven. It was only then that they started to enjoy their life and were happy. This Slovene tale about the creation of fertile land has preserved the memory of the long-lost abilities of being nourished by cosmic life energy, or mana, which sustained abundance. Abundance from a time before the Common Era, a time in which God still lived among the people in a physical form, feeding them with heavenly manna or prana. And every time I hear the word manna, manna from heaven, or like the bread of life, the manna from heaven, I think of I'm a gamer, so I used to play video games. And you used to have your health bar, your strength bar, your stamina bar, but then also your mana. And the mana bar was like that magical source of energy that you could utilize for whatever you wanted. You know, you had your vitality, your strength, your stamina, your mana, that magical power, that magical source. So I like the comparisons here. So mana or prana, this is what the Slovene tale says. And that is why people did not have to work at first. The ability of a distant breatharian lifestyle without usual food probably existed in the remote past. But when people began to eat meat and plants, they lost their paradise. Wow. Paradise lost. What was the cost? They were seemingly happy within the material abundance of a full bowl, but they, however, started to lose their heavenly abilities. That's what I think when I think about mana. It gave you heavenly abilities within the game world, within that virtual reality. But how do we think of it in this reality? Those of boundless consciousness and cosmic telepathy. Here we go. The lore says that God moved. The presence of the divine disappeared. Infinite possibilities and opportunities disappeared along with it. And people began to earn their daily bread with the sweat of their brows from what was left. From the soil made of God's body, or from that which had been created. The source of life had created all matter. They forgot about the source and themselves. They forgot about their primordial state and awareness. When the time comes, life teaches us about the sacredness of living, regardless of whether we believe in the divine or are complete atheists. It teaches us about the cosmic creative forces, about cosmic laws or God. Slowly, drop by drop, never too rapidly and never too slowly either, with only as much as a person is able to handle. It teaches us about our spiritual dimensions, the boundlessness and of the soul and the laws of the bodies. I recently cried because I was touched and grateful upon realizing with all my soul how precisely we are being guided through various life trials. Step by step, never too quickly, never too strongly, otherwise we become fearful and flee back to what we had already transcended, right? When they say like how we're going out of our comfort zone and into our discovery zone, a lot of times it can be frightening, you know? Even though it can be enlightening, it can also be frightening because we're going into the zone of the unknown. And not too gently, not too slowly either. Otherwise, we would still be standing at the same spot as yesterday. When we become aware of our own spiritual guidance, our own divine spark or soul, and when we start to listen to it and act in line with it without any doubts, new dimensions of spirit will open up, gates into the boundlessness of miracles, to grace beyond compare will open up. Gratitude opens the gates wide. It leads us to things which our mind is still unable to understand, and therefore finds it difficult to accept. But these things are nevertheless possible. We are actually the ones who are limiting ourselves on a daily basis with our patterns, habits, thoughts, etc. So as they say, you know, the only real limitation is your own imagination. Imagine that. And the belief that we need to eat in order to survive is one of them. We are swimming in an ocean of energy, which offers us everything we need. But we are floating on this ocean as if in a capsule, with our radio frequency receivers shut. So it's almost like if you can picture somebody, wanting some water, and they're trying to take a little small cup, and they take the cup to the ocean, and they keep taking that little cup, right? Taking from the water of the vast ocean. We live in a sea of chi, an ocean of energy, constantly surrounded with consciousness, right? So there's no end when the energy is your friend. Gratitude and listening to the spiritual guidance of the soul. In the new millennium, we must speak again about Breatharianism, out of a responsibility for both personal and planetary evolution, which unfold at an accelerated pace, leading us into something totally new. The time of the physical guru and religious leading by the hand according to prescriptive rules is departing ever more clearly and intensely. The life which lies ahead of us requires us to listen to the leading levels of our consciousness, our soul, and its contents. It requires us to listen to our guidance, which possesses all the wisdom we need and which is constantly connected to boundless cosmic intelligence, consciousness, the divine essence. Its vibrational flow and the non-physical, non-incarnated masters of wisdom. Angels, if you want, are also called universal laws by the spiritual traditions of different cultures. Listening to ourselves, to our own divine essence. Remember that we were created in the divine image and that we are therefore equally boundless and splendid. And listening to the whispers of creation are once again challenge of the humankind in this new era. This touches us at the levels of our mind and heart, inviting us into the new adventures of uncovering our own dormant capabilities and as yet undiscovered abilities. So our dormant capabilities and undiscovered abilities, it lets us know that there is always more to explore and more in store within. So when you look within you, you realize we must continue, seeming to solve in the ways that we must evolve. And that this energy, these abilities, are available for all. Of course, we have to be grateful to all earthly and cosmic teachers alike, to the essences of the immortal souls of the enlightened ones who are present, who helped to show us the way to the place where the expanses of the boundless open up, helping us with the ability to start walking ourselves in tune with the divine intent. Everything is necessary, one and the other alike, the physical and spiritual. It is wise to recognize when and how we, with certainty and without exaggeration and delusive illusions, can step into our own independent path beyond our general stuckness in limiting rules. Love the way this author writes. Onto the level of transformation, which awakens the abilities of connecting our personal space with spacelessness and timelessness with the mysterious intent of our life path. A friend who is a scientist once asked me how I knew that what I was feeling and saying was actually real. This is my explanation. I recognize non-material reality by energies, by accompanying sensory perceptions, and by out-of-body intuitive telepathic insights. These perceptions are so powerful, so revealing and transformative that they are impossible to miss. Luckily, I sense the invisible, intangible, and inaudible levels with all my bodies, with all my registers. They actually have a holistic effect on people, affecting the mind, emotions, consciousness, and physical body. They are present even though we might not want them. Or even though we did not summon them, they always bring answers to our quests, and they never leave us indifferent. They shake us, they move us towards the direction we need to take. Healthy checks are still welcome, despite certainty, but in our checks, there should not be any doubts about the exceptional possibilities which time is offering us. Let me repeat, I am writing these lines because I want to encourage people to step into the expanses of the unknown, into that which is not entirely understandable. But things which are not understandable can be illuminated through experiences, and this will reveal things which have been overlooked, perhaps ill understood. So may this writing help you as you discover the levels of life and consciousness, those levels which are hidden from the ordinary mind. As help and food for thought, I offer my recollections, my reflections, which are, of course, a mirror of my own abilities and understandings. The flows of cosmic energies can feed us and open us up to an ever clearer awareness, to spiritual growth, and to the expansion of consciousness. Above all, they are a warning that the seemingly impossible is, in fact, truly possible. You know, I love that word because even within the word impossible, it says, I'm possible. The source of these abilities is universal consciousness, the divine essence and logos. And our spiritual guidance, our multidimensional telepathic consciousness transfers these givens into our everyday life. This is why the experience of Breatharianism cannot be described without prior experiences of establishing a connection with spiritual guidance and with the all-pervading energy flows. But in order to find the roots, we actually need to go right back to our birth. Birth is certainly one of those most stressful experiences. A series of mistakes begins with the way the new coming baby is handled. Interference with a baby's autonomy starts there. The baby comes into the world and is even smacked shortly after the birth to induce loud crying. We thus begin to lose our wholeness right at our birth. Departure into the expanses beyond death is far more splendid than arrival into the world. The return to the wide open spaces of the non-material is like a feast. Spirit is being liberated from physical chains. This is why, at the beginning of my spiritual path, I wanted to become a therapist for the dead, a guide to the levels beyond. Newborn babies should be attuned to vital cosmic energies immediately after birth. This would ensure that life flow runs smoothly, peacefully, without blocks, and without those first stressful records or imprints into their subconscious and cell memory, which would prevent them from attracting equally stressful events into their lives later on. Unfortunately, birth is extremely stressful today. And I remember hearing with holotropic breathwork that one of my friends, she's French, she deals with holotropic breathing, and this is a technique where you lay down and you go through this entire experience. And there have been so many accounts of people going all the way back to their birth, having like a rebirthing or feeling the sensation of what they felt when they were born, going back to the moment in time of their birth and experiencing that again, coming out of the womb and just feeling that, whatever stress, whatever fear, whatever emotions were going on in that moment, realizing that the body has everything locked inside it. The subconscious mind, the body, it forgets nothing. It has everything stored within. So just to have that memory locked inside us and that we can actually go back and experience that again is amazing to me. My birth in 1956 was supposedly not easy. They say that my twin sister and I hardly survived it. It was with difficulty that we started living, but our Aquarian vitality enabled us to survive. Soon after our birth, my mother's breasts were inflamed and we were fed with artificial baby food, which had just arrived on the market. But this food later caused me many health problems and decreased my vital and energy abilities for a long period of time. It was so until I started to consciously develop my energy potential, cleanse my bodies, until I became a raw eater in the last years of the previous millennium, which brought back the life power I had lost. This period was later followed by liquidarianism, feeding on liquid. And then, from August 2000, by breatharianism. Breatharianism is feeding on breath, on vital energy or prana. In my infancy, infant formula instead of natural breastfeeding caused problems with my kidney, gallbladder, and liver. With the detoxing organs, I had great problems with food for almost 40 years. Even light dietary food was too heavy for me. I vomited almost half of the food I ate. Sometimes even all of the food I had ingested. I vomited everything I ate, especially during pregnancy. And so my wish to eat nothing grew and grew. Unconsciously, I was sending out into the cosmos the fervent desire to not have to eat anymore. One day, my wish was heard. Just before Christmas in 1994. Wow, I was 4 years old. And in the first days of 1995, I suddenly felt an aversion towards all food. I was in a special meditative state, close to a trance for 16 days, as if something was holding me by the throat. I simply could not put even the smallest bit down my esophagus, not even a sip of liquid, which of course surprised me greatly. According to the medical doctrine and our usual humble knowledge, I should have been poisoned, dehydrated, dead, etc. during that time, but I was not. Just the opposite. I had the feeling that I saw and feel ever more clearly, that I was finally truly alive. My expanded consciousness saw, heard, and perceived much more than before. A miracle, yet not at all a strange one, in fact. Months prior to this event, I had been intensely researching the human energy field. I was meditating with crystals, which certainly, additionally, expanded my consciousness and raised the vibration of my etheric bodies. And this was also the time of my period of double knots, a time of great trials and learning. medical checks, excellent blood test results, and the mind as director. Well, those close to me were worried, so they took me for a medical checkup at the diagnostic center in Bled. Even I did not know how to understand the physical state I was in and what was happening. Swallowing a rubber tube with a light fixed to it, going right down my throat, gastroscopy, was not pleasant in the slightest. But the results of blood and other tests showed me that everything was fine. Only the esophageal mucosa was slightly damaged as a result of my frequent vomiting. My blood was excellent for the first time in my life. My mind was telling me that according to set and acquired patterns, I needed to eat in order to survive. This is simply how it is and how it should be. We can't be without food. That was what I thought at the time, like most people. I slowly managed to convince myself to try again, and so I started eating once more. Later, I came to realize that the mind is the director, shaping our reality and blocking our access to the boundless creative field by means of our thoughts and patterns. I started eating again because I did not know that life without food was possible, but my diet would never be the same as it had been. Fish, cooked food, and above all, carbs, which I recognized as the most harmful for my body, were crossed off of the menu. I slowly moved to liquids of clear vegetable soups without carbs, only salt, water, and small pieces of vegetable to add taste, natural juices, and entirely raw food. I persisted with raw food for 3 years until I switched, this time consciously and permanently, to Breatharianism. When I heard for the first time about the possibility of living without solid food, and about Jas Muheen, an Australian lady who had been a breatharian since 1993, I remembered my own experience in 1994 and realized what it was actually all about. My mind had created a wish to live without food. It sent out this thought into the universe, along with commands to my bodies. And one day, my wish received feedback and created a possibility. But then, this same mind stopped the realization of my wish with its slight doubt and some incomprehension of the situation. It destroyed it with the thought that we need to eat, that I simply cannot be without food. This interrupted the miraculous connection between my bodies, physical and etheric alike, soul and the all abundance of the universe. I myself was the director of both extremely different possibilities, which unfortunately mutually annihilated each other. When I read the book Pranic Nourishment by Jas Muheen, who had started to experience Breatharianism only a year before me, I smacked my forehead, saying, "Oh, you foolish, ignorant woman." And at the very same moment, I again asked for the permanent possibility of being nourished by universal life energy. Now, I love how she says here, I again asked for the permanent possibility of being nourished. I asked. You know, there's a saying, ask and ye shall receive. Seek and ye shall find. You know, ask and it shall be given unto you. Knock and the door shall be opened unto you. And I recall in my first Breatharian retreat, my first Pranic retreat back in 2020, I actually asked. I was at the point where I asked for this feeling of nourishment and not needing to last. And when I asked, it didn't take long for that feeling of lack and scarcity to pass. And as I went further into my fast, I even had a dream of a question. Like, is this really what you want? Is this really your desire? And I said yes. And then I remember a door and the door opening, and I just walked through the door. And I woke up. I rose up and I looked and I saw, you know, my friends all around me at the retreat in sleeping bags. And I was the only one awake. But it was such a state of feeling that I had created my own fate by humbling myself enough to ask and receive. And you don't have to take my word for it. You believe what you believe. A path opened up once again. During this time of intense transformation, I was learning to open up to the completely odd, unexpected, and completely incomprehensible new possibilities of this miraculous time of the Aquarian age. We will get what we think is possible and what we will be able to accept. Whew. We are what we think. That is such a line right there. We will get what we think is possible and what we will be able to accept. And as we know, there's so many people who are not able to connect because it's just beyond what they're able to accept. But I must go back to how it all started. As I write these lines and look back at the past, I am ever more aware of the stations and experiences which were vital for me, for they were the preconditions for my future seemingly miraculous experiences. A clear contact with your own spiritual guidance, with the dimensions of your soul, is the condition for a clear connection to the frequency grandeur of the universe. A clear connection to yourself, to your meta-consciousness, your higher I, is first and foremost crucial in the processes during which cosmic vibrations change your etheric bodies, expand your consciousness, and awaken the soul's memory. So, the awakening of the soul's memory, like a remembering the things that already are. The things that might have seemed far, right? Just like when you look up and you see those bright stars, but you realize that what you see is actually what you are. This is actually what makes Breatharianism possible. The clearer this connection is, the more we benefit from this adventure into the unknown. The more devoted we are, the less we doubt. I like that. The more devotion, the less doubt. That's what it's all about. The more we will surrender to the power of the primordial logos, the intelligence of life. And the more we will benefit from this experience, our perceptions will be more intense, and the lessons and tasks we embrace will be more interesting. Our process of transformation will be lighter. I can confirm this on the basis of my experience and also on the basis of my work with people who I have helped to attain similar experiences and gifts bestowed at the courses within my spiritual school, Viduna. This connection is in fact possible only in a state of total surrender and acceptance. In this way, people do not fear that they will fail or die, and they have no doubts about the benefits of the process either. Their rewards consist of cleansed and strengthened etheric bodies, which then accept new abilities. The soul starts a new life, a new karma in the same body. It takes on new missions. And to summarize, with the help of the frequency flow of cosmic intelligence, with the master teachers of the universe, as folk tradition would put it, we transcend our karmic, astrological, or preordained givens. With the transition to pranic living, we do our own yagya. As the Vedas would say, we begin to change our own destiny or karma. For the broader and better, of course. But such processes are not for everyone. They require total, devoted surrender to the new and a redeeming release of old thought patterns, as well as a certain development level of consciousness. So we'll go ahead and we'll take a rest right there. I trust that you were blessed right there for the knowledge that we may not have learned in college, but how these teachings are ever far-reaching. And more people are beseeching this information to raise their vibration and feel unimaginable sensations in relation to this congregation. It is a universal co-creation and a conscious collaboration. Thank you for listening once again and glistening, my friend. With this time that we spend, it is never the end. For today's modern sages who bring the wisdom of the ages, this has been Jerome Shaw with the Pranic Pages.